Okay, so it looks like a good amount of people were able to join us just now. So we're going to go ahead and get started. First thing is where you guys see that question section on the webinar, I want y'all just to send a message, maybe citing your school and chapter, just so we make sure that feature is working. As the webinar goes on, you'll be able to submit questions as they come up, and then my teammate will be answering those during the webinar, or if it's something that's good for everybody to know, then we may save it till the end and then go over it with everybody. But let's go ahead and move on. So my name's Hannah Gunderson. I'm going to be leading the webinar today, and then Sarah Beth's my teammate who's going to be handling all those questions for you guys. And then before I get into the agenda, Sarah Beth's just going to take a minute and go over a little bit of information about Omegafy and what we do here.
Awesome. Thank you, Hannah, for the intro. And like Hannah said, I'm just going to be going over some background information about Omegafy, our company. So for more than 30 years, Omegafy has provided technology solutions to help customers manage their finances, streamline their operations, recruit new members, and communicate with their members. So whether it's working with 57 different headquarters or local chapters, house corporations, IFC and Panhellenic councils, and alumni associations across more than 650 campuses, we remain the industry leader when it comes to technology in the fraternity and sorority community. We are based out of Columbus, Georgia, and every day we securely process more than 1.1 million for our clients, and we have securely processed more than 4 billion since 1992. We are deeply committed to serving, promoting, and advancing the fraternity and sorority experience, and we aim to make raving fans with every individual or group we work with by reaching and innovating and acting with agility. We challenge ourselves to dream big every day and to help others achieve their own dreams. So to say we are passionate about what we do is an understatement, and it's this passion that has encouraged our clients to trust us to do the heavy lifting so they can focus on their mission and having fun.
Awesome. Thank you, Sarah Beth. Now going into today's agenda, I know it looks like a lot, but I promise it won't take too long. We're going to go over updating your member roster, updating billing roster, member logins, paying outstanding invoices, fall billing, and then reminders and Q&A. So if you've been to a couple of our previous webinars we had a few months ago, this may look similar, but I'm just going to go into a little bit more detail or show you a few different reports I want you to check just to make sure everything's ready to go for fall. I think we're at that time of year where we want to make sure all the accounts are super cleaned up and ready to go. So that way, once your members start getting those first statements, it'll be a little bit less work on you guys. You'll have less questions, less things that have to be fixed, and we can just make sure everything's perfect and then gives you a smooth transition with recruitment and everything else coming up. So I'm going to pause my screen and switch it over to Vault just to give a screen share so you guys can see what I'm going to be talking about. Okay, so you should be looking at the homepage of Vault. I'm logged into our test account as Peter, our treasurer, and I'll be going through everything. So the first thing on our agenda was updating your member roster. I'm sure you guys have done this a bunch before, but just to refresh, it's this chapter tab, and then we click member roster. And this will show you all of your active members up on top. So that would be members who are initiates or new members. It may vary a little bit just based on what terminology you guys use. So maybe we'll say collegiate members or associate members, but those will be listed here. And then when you go down to the bottom, you're going to have other records. So these are going to be your alums. If you have disassociated or depledged members, all of those are going to be down here. And what I want you to do is really spend time going through this, making sure these are right. So maybe start by making sure all of your seniors who graduated last year have been marked as alum in our office active member roster. If you had members who decided not to return to the chapter, or maybe something came up and they were dismissed from the chapter, you're going to want to make sure you submit that so this roster gets updated. And the way you do that will vary chapter to chapter. So I'm sure you've maybe given some direction from an advisor or previous officer, but if you have questions, you can always reach out to us and our team will let you know the best way for your chapter to do it. But I do know some of you are just going to be going to this chapter tab and you'll be able to update member statuses here. if you do your membership reporting through Megafy. If you do it through something like Chapter Spot, Chapter Gateway, any of those, you're going to want to make sure you log into that, update your member records, and they should push into Vault. If you don't see those updates come through, you may have to manually adjust them or reach out there if you're seeing any issues, but that's pretty rare. You shouldn't run into anything. So once that's done, you're going to want to go back here and make sure again that all of this looks okay. If you've had new members join, or maybe you had transfers come over the summer, again, that's going to vary how you add them. You either will do it through like Chapter Spot, Chapter Gateway, one of those, or you'll go in here and you're going to add them as a new member. Sometimes it'll let you, when you add them, change your membership status, but if not, you can just add them as a new member and then go to here, again, click Update Member Status, and just switch that transfer member from a new member to an initiate, since they most likely were initiated with their old chapter. Going back here again, add new members. Once recruitment starts going, you get those new members. If you do all of your stuff through Vault, you'll add them here. You can add them in mass. And there's a template you can use. We are in a later webinar probably going to go more into detail with new members, but this is just kind of for just a quick reminder. If before that webinar you guys have questions on uploading new members, it'll be either here or through that like external database you guys use. The importance of updating this roster. This roster has maybe not so much to do with like a Megafy and how we charge you guys, but these membership statuses are often used by your national or international office to determine how you guys will be invoiced. So they're going to be looking at all of those initiates and new members you guys have for this semester, and that's how they're going to calculate what you guys owe national or international headquarters. So you'll want to make sure all of this is correct. That way you're not getting overbilled for members who are no longer active in your chapter. Another thing, this is specific, some chapters I know have to submit special paperwork if they did have members who dropped or were dismissed. So make sure you submit that as well as soon as possible if you haven't already, to make sure that those updates get approved, and that way they can get off your roster before the semester starts. The next thing I'm going to show you after you update this member roster is your billing roster. Again, you've probably done this before, so it's just billing, member list by billing group. And here you can see all of your active members who are in active billing. Now, the way this is going to vary or differ, I should say, from your membership roster is that this will be members who are getting actively billed. So members that may be on your chapter membership roster, but not this billing roster, would be maybe study abroad members. So those members are still active in your organization, but they aren't going to be actively billed this semester, in which case you can move them to inactive billing without impacting their membership status with the organization as a whole. So to update those, you can click billing, and then you'll just click update billing statuses, and it'll give you a list of all of your members. So you just check the box by their name. The status will be inactive, and then it lets you give a reason. So if they did graduate, something like that, you could put alumnus or graduation, but maybe it's just a temporary thing. You can put temporary inactive, or you can put abroad. That way you can keep track of why those members are inactive, and then next semester when you're looking through your inactive billing roster, you can get an idea of why you moved them. It'll be easier to move them back. So if the inactive reason's abroad, it'll probably prompt you to look at that and then switch them back to active for the upcoming semester. Now, this update for your billing roster, we need you to have done a minimum of 2 days before your first set of fall statements go out, and that's because this roster is how Megafy determines what we're going to charge you guys. So when statements go out for cycle 1, we would look at this active billing roster. So for this chapter, we would see 46 members, and we would charge you per member. So we would charge you for 46 members. Once that amount's set, it's set for the semester. The only way it changes is it'll go up if you add new members, but it doesn't go down. So if you maybe forgot to remove all of your senior members, and there was, let's say this chapter had 10 seniors that graduated, they'd get stuck paying for an extra 10 members they otherwise shouldn't have paid for. So just make sure you go through and do that. If you can do it, today or tomorrow, this weekend, whenever you have time, that would be best. But just know we will also reach out to you before statements go out, the support teams who I'm sure you're used to speaking with, they're going to give you a reminder as well saying, hey, your statements are going out next week or on this day. Make sure everything's updated. Like, can you confirm everything looks good to go? That way we, just double check and make sure you guys aren't paying for more members than you need to be paying for. So that's basically what you need to know there. Another thing you can do after you do that, if your billing's already set up to go, you can update billing groups. And I'll get into this a little more when I go over setting up billing as a whole, but just double check this too to make sure everybody will be in the correct billing group. That way they're getting charged what they're supposed to for the semester. The next thing I'm going to show you now that assuming you had gone through these 2 steps, your rosters would be updated, is I'm going to show you how to double check that your members actually have access to their account. Something you'll probably want to avoid or maybe get ahead of is those members getting statements and then waiting till the last second and then going, hey, I can't log into my account. I can't pay my dues. Maybe then they get a late fee because they waited too long. It's going to cause some issues for you, maybe having to go and reverse that if you're going to like forgive that, or maybe they'll just get stuck paying extra fees. So you should be able to go to this My Megafy logins. I'm going to try to reload the page because usually it'll show a little bit more information. Oh, I think it's just really zoomed in. Okay. I may just have my screen zoomed in a little bit too much, but when you scroll down to that login, or when you click that login section, scroll down, you can see their last web login. So since this is a test account, most of the members have never logged in because they're fake. I think most of the ones that do log in are just us logging in as them for these examples, but you should be able to go through and then make sure that your members have at least at some point logged into their account showing they have access. So you can go through here. If you see any blank, like let's say this is a real chapter, you could text or email Marie, or if there's a bunch of them, you could put them like in one email thread, do it that way, and just check in to make sure they're able to get into their account. Again, this may take a little bit of time if there's a few of them, but I think getting ahead of it will save you a lot of time going forward in the future, especially once school picks up with classes, recruitment, everything like that. Now, if your members haven't logged in and you reach out and they say like, hey, I can't even figure out how to get into my account, you can send them a reminder here. It'll resend them a registration email, or they can go to megafy.com. There'll be something in the top right corner that says get access. They can click that, or there's a login support email that I'm going to show you guys at the end. So at the end of this webinar, I have a like a page of all the different emails and phone numbers for different things. So you guys can just screenshot that and then share the relevant email addresses or phone numbers with your members. So I would go through there, make sure everybody has access to their account before billing goes out, and that way you shouldn't run into too many hiccups once everybody gets their statements. So speaking of statements, the next thing is going to be checking that your fall billing is set up. So that's the billing tab, and then you're going to click billing overview. If you don't have billing set up, it's going to be one of 2 things. If your chapter is able to set up their own billing, you'll just click the set up billing button and it completely walks you through the steps. We have a couple videos in this Get Help section that shows you billing setup as well as articles. And I did go over it in last month's webinar. I don't want to get too into it, all the steps for this one, just for the sake of time, but you will just click the setup billing button and then it'll walk you through setting that up. I'm going to go back here and show you if we were editing these summer statements on this test account, or if we want to look at previous ones, we can look at it here. So if we're pretending this is fall, this is the billing you set up for the upcoming semester, what I'm going to want y'all to do is make sure that you've itemized all your charges and these income accounts are correct. If these aren't correct, once members start paying their dues, money's not going to go where it's supposed to, and then your chapter is going to run into issues like accessing the funds they need. So just make sure that you're double checking that these income accounts are right. So IFC dues, you see they have coded to this. National dues and fees is probably going to be the most important for a lot of you chapters with deposit splits. So anything that is supposed to go to your national or international office, those dues that member paid, make sure that the income account is national dues and fees. That way, when their payment does go through, our system knows to take that, in this case would be $115, and put it in your national dues and fees fund. And then the rest of the money can go to your operating fund or wherever else you have it designated. I know some chapters have, rent deposit splits because they want to put it in a rent account or they want money going to their bank account, whatever it is, however you set it up. You'll just want to make sure the income accounts are correct. The other thing I want you to notice here is this chapter, our fake account, has these accounting fees and then also the Omega Phi fees. These are fees that are going to come out of members' payments no matter what. So you either have the option of itemizing them or you can build it into chapter dues. So some people don't like having it all separated out like that. So instead of just doing $100 for chapter dues, they'd add the 16 to that and the 33 to that as well, just so they're accounting for that money that's going to go to pay us at Omega Phi and then also the card processors. I'm going to actually show you an example of what that looks like. So here's like an example of the Omega Phi last 30 days register, and I'll show you that after I go through this. But on this register, it'll show you when we receive payments from your members. So in this case, payments are received $100, and below it, you can see where that money went. So you can see of that $100, $10 went to paying the Omega Phi fee. That's because we take 10% of all member payments until the cap amount's met. That cap amount that was calculated on the number of active billing members you had. Once that's met, we'll stop collecting it. So if you had paid off all the Omega Phi fees for the semester, you'd no longer see this line item. But in this case, $10 went towards paying the Omega Phi fee. And then under that, this is a card processing fee that it doesn't go to Omega Phi, it doesn't go to the chapter. It's just because they used a Visa card. So the card processor takes $3.05 from that. So that's money that's no longer going to the chapter. If it's not a big deal for you guys, you, again, don't have to itemize it, but we usually recommend that you do just so you have a better idea of what the chapter is actually going to receive. A lot of times people will just charge that $100 chapter dues, and then they assume $100 is going to go to their operating fund, but these things are going to come out first. So whenever you want to go through that or see where your money went, you can always go to this last 30 days register. It'll break it down for you, but just to be aware, these things are always going to be coming out. Merchant discount fees for sure, and then Omega Phi fees, especially at the beginning of the semester, will be coming out of those chapter dues. So you just want to make sure those are accounted for. Another thing I'll show you while I'm on this page, just because it's easy, this split withholding for national dues and fees, that is what I was referencing earlier with those income accounts. So our system saw for the chapter that had charged this, $51 worth of their payment was for chapter dues. And then a bill pay account deposit, that was just the remaining amount they had. So $35 ended up going to the chapter's operating fund. On other accounts, if you guys use your bank account instead of an operating fund, instead of saying bill pay account deposit, it'll say ACH transfer to chapter or to organization. So you can see that money went where it was supposed to. So if you want to access this register once your members start paying, it's just under this accounting tab. You click account registers, and then it'll be this Omega Phi last 30 days. Now, since this is a test account, there's no actual payments coming through, but something good to point out on this register is this ending balance of $0. Even on y'all's Omega Phi last 30 days register, if you have hundreds or thousands of dollars of payments coming through, you still always want this register to equal $0 at the end of the day. That's basically letting you know that Omega Phi, we received money from your members and we gave it to you. If there's money here, that means we're holding it and we don't know maybe where it needs to be put. So if it's after processing time, I believe that's 2 o'clock. If you see for a few days that money starts building up, that may be because you had your account set up to deposit into a bank account that's not correctly linked or something like that. So it's pretty rare that that happens. But if you ever would see this start to build up, that means we don't have a place to give you your money. We're not going to keep it from you, but you just need to reach out to your rep and let them know where you'd like us to deposit that. That way we can give you the funds you guys need. Another thing to watch in this register is if something's in parentheses or if it's in red, that means you guys owe Omega Phi money. So it's, again, pretty rare that that happens. I think the main time you would see that, especially coming up, would be if members' checks were entered in wrong. So sometimes members will pay within e-check and they accidentally will mistype their account or routing number. So Omega Phi will give you the money. If they made a $1,000 payment, we'll go, here's the money, goes to your operating fund. But once that check goes to process on our end, will not get the money because the information's wrong. And then we're going to go, oh, hey, we gave you guys $1,000 that we actually shouldn't have because we didn't get it from this member. So that'll be a negative balance here. Usually it resolves itself, especially in that scenario. You just tell your member to go back in and retry the payment. They probably just mistyped their account number. Once they redo that payment, it'll rebalance out the register for you guys. So just make sure you're checking this register and keeping track of where y'all's members' payments are going. And that way, too, if something does look off or if you're noticing things aren't splitting up like they're supposed to, you can reach out to your account rep or your support team here at Omegafy, and they can kind of explain why the money is moving the way it's moving. I know it can be a little complicated, so it's usually easier to get that like one-on-one help for your specific situation. The last thing I'm going to go over is tax filing. This isn't necessarily a school prep back to school thing, but it's more of a reminder. If you file taxes through Omegafy, you can click accounting here, and then you just click tax filing. Once this loads, you would click add 990, and it walks you through the process. The reason I bring that up, and I'm going to switch back to my PowerPoint, is some tax deadlines will be upcoming. And although they can seem a little far out, I'm sure you guys know once the school year starts, things really pick up. So if your chapter had a fiscal year ending either the end of May or the end of June, you guys are good to go to start submitting your 990s if you file through Omegafy. And the sooner you do that, the better. Sometimes people will wait, to the last second. And while that can work sometimes, you just have to remember that a lot of people are filing taxes. So if our tax team receives your 990 and they go to file it, but maybe something was entered in incorrectly, or maybe they had questions, you want to make sure they have time to email you guys and make sure everything's straightened away so they can still file by this deadline. So the sooner you can get that in, the better. So if you were May deadline or end of May, you have till October 15th. If you could get that in a month earlier, that's the safest. I know some things come up, but the sooner definitely the better. And then same for this November 15th. I would try to get it in probably by October 15th just to allow yourself time to get with our tax team. If anything had come up, they can get the answers and make sure everything's filed on time and your chapter's good to go. But with that, I will go over questions now. Sarah Beth, do you know if any have come through?
Yeah, we had a few come through about the credit card fee and setting that up, but just going over that is actually automatic. So the fees that come out of credit card payments, that processing fee will automatically come out of any of those. And it does look like Caroline put, could you go over bill pay?
Oh my goodness, yes, I completely missed the invoices. I'm sorry, y'all. Give me 1 second. Thank you for reminding me. Okay, so bill pay, this bill pay tab, making sure your invoices are paid. So if you have any outstanding invoices, it'll be under bill pay payments, and they'll be listed down here. So our fake account here still owes $100 on this bill. Now, if you look at your payments that are outstanding and you see that they're checked and approved for payment and you're wondering why they still don't go through, oftentimes it's because there's not enough money in the operating fund or whatever fund you have this linked to. So you can see here on process payments payment fund, it says this test Pi operating. And if we were to look at their account register, since this is a fake account, there's no money in it, but you can see that there's not enough money for that to process. So the minute this chapter would put at least $100, that payment would go through the next day. If it's after 2 o'clock, if it's before 2 o'clock on like a weekday, it'll go through the same day. So that's our processing time. But going back to payments, if they were looking at this and this was unchecked, like if this was unauthorized, you would just want to make sure you check this and that it's good to go. Some of your chapters will have dual authorization. So maybe like your VP of finance has to approve it as well as your president, or maybe it's you and your finance advisor, whatever your chapter has set up for that. You'll just want to make sure both of you have gone in and clicked this checkbox so we know that we're good to pay this invoice for you. If you maybe didn't have enough money in the operating fund, but you guys have an external bank account, or maybe you have a couple bill pay funds and one has excess and you want to move the money over to cover that bill, you can click bill pay, go to transfers, and then you'll click this red add button. It'll say one-time transfer, and then you just fill in the blank. So in this case, they would transfer $100, and if they had, usually you don't transfer money from your national dues and fees fund, but if they had money in here, they could click that, and if they were allowed to do that, they would do that. Transfer to operating, and then they'll just click submit and it would go through. Now, in y'all's case, it would probably be a different operating fund. So maybe you had like a social bill pay fund, or under this, it would say external bank account, and you could click like a Wells Fargo account or any other bank like that. It'll take money from your bank and put it into your operating fund to cover that bill. Same could be said for national dues and fees. So if it was like roles reverse and we could pretend this was actually $100 they had, maybe your national dues and fees fund was short $100 and you guys had to pay your national office like within the next few days, you could do it this way, and you can always put money into this national dues and fees fund. You don't need approval or anything like that. Click submit and it'll go right through. That way it can cover your bills. Does that answer your question mostly for bill pay? I know you have to type in the chat, but
we did have another one come in about responding to bill pay inquiries for someone who didn't cash their check. So say like a void check, like a vendor that they hired but never cashed the check.
Yeah, so if that scenario's happened for you guys, if I'm assuming you're getting that message from us at Omegafy saying like, hey, this check is still dated, we voided it because it took too long for them to deposit it. In that case, we've already put the money back in your account. So all you need to do is respond to that message or reach out to your support team if you want to issue the payment. So if it was to a vendor, maybe you sent a member a refund check and they didn't deposit it. If you want to just go ahead and reissue that right away, you can let us know and we'll resend them a new check. But if it's something where maybe you want to hold off and you're like, I'm going to check with my member to see if they have an updated address, or maybe it's a returning member and they didn't do the refund check, but they're about to get charged dues again, you can just go ahead and let our team know that you don't want to reissue the check, and then we'll just remove that request. And again, the money will already be in your operating fund or whatever bill pay fund you use. So it'll be available for whatever else you need. So that's what you would do with those. And Sarah Beth, when you mentioned the that card processing fee, I will show you guys what a lot of chapters do with this billing overview again. I'm going to click this.
Asking, those are the same percent as last year, correct? For the card processing?
As far as I'm aware, yes. I haven't seen an email about updated percentage like increases, but if there was an increase, their support rep should have reached out to them and like notified them. But it should be the same. So if you do want to build that into your billing, usually what people will do is add all of their totals first, and then they'll just take that percentage of each cycle and build it in. So you just add that accounting fee last. That way you can cover the amount. Also, if you want to avoid those merchant discount fees as card processing fees, you can just encourage your members to pay with e-checks. It's not more difficult for them or anything like that. It's still through their My Omegafy account, or if they use the app, they can do it that way. They can put it on auto pay. It's the same exact place, but instead of saying add new card, they would say like add new checking account, I believe. And then they would just fill in their information. So they can submit payments that way. And that way the chapter isn't losing money to card processing fees. If you want some incentive, I know I've had a chapter in the past, they took a summary. If you go to your income statement, or excuse me, if you go to your Omegafy last 30 days register I was showing you, and I can show you this actually, since I have Vault pulled up, they'll go to this register and they'll set the date range to last year, so maybe like their last school year. And then instead of detail, they switch it to summary. And that way you can download a report of all those merchant discount fees. So the chapter did is when they had one of their like chapter meetings on Sunday or whenever they had it, they basically showed their chapter a breakdown of how much money the chapter gave up to these card processing fees, and it kind of incentivized them to submit e-checks. It's not required or anything, but if that is something you're trying to implement with your chapter, that's usually kind of motivating when you see hundreds of dollars just going to card processing fees when that could have gone to the chapter for other stuff you'd rather use it for. And then I am going to switch it back because I promised you all that page of support email addresses. And here it is. Okay, so here you can see I have this categorized in different sections. So this chapter support area, this is information that only chapter admin use. So basically all of y'all on the webinar, you can use this support email address. If you have a specific support email address that you've been using, you can use that as well. The phone number is right here. I believe you click line 2, but double check me on that and it'll take you to your account rep. And then texting, you can text us whenever you want. It's like a normal phone number. The only thing to be aware of is it does go to our work computers. So if you text on the weekend, it's not a big deal at all, but just know we may not get back to you until Monday. But don't be afraid to send questions whenever they come up. If you want to, send multiple in a row, it's not like weird or awkward or anything like that. You can send any question you have, and then your team, your support team here at Megafy will get back to you as soon as they're back in office. Login support, this can be used by you or your chapter members. So anytime you have an issue getting into your account, if it says access denied, or maybe if your chapter has 2 different accounts, like you have a housing account and a chapter account and they aren't linking up like you thought they should be, this login support email is going to be the one you want to use. And then again, it's the same 800 number, but I don't know what number you select. Just listen to the menu options and it'll give you one for login support. Up here is the information you can give member and parents. So the customer service at omegafy.com email, they can email with any questions about their bill. So if they just maybe some people prefer calling in to make a payment, they can call that phone number, or if they want to email asking questions about different things in their invoice, they can do it that way. Also, if members or parents want to request, if they have like a credit balance, want to request refunds, anything like that, if they are too afraid to go to the chapter or they don't want to talk to you, they can go ahead and email these or use this email address or call this phone number, and then our team will go through the process of helping them with whatever they need. And then the last thing is that in-app support. You just click that yellow Get Help button. It's a tab on Vault, and then it'll take you to our help desk. And there we have a bunch of articles that we've written. There's also videos, links to old Vault webinars that you can go through and watch. We're always adding stuff to it. So if you don't see an article, feel free to suggest one, or maybe just check back. We may add it. As time goes on, we're always trying to keep that the most up to date. There's a search bar, so instead of having to click through hundreds of articles, you can kind of refine what you're looking for, do it that way. And if once you're on that Get Help page, you don't see what you need, in the top right corner, there is an option to submit a request. You can click that and then it'll go to our team and we'll be able to help you that way too. It'll be like a normal email turnaround. So, like 1 to 2 days. If you send it on the weekend, it'll probably be 2 days when we get back on Monday, we'll be able to look at it. But that's the information there. So if you want to screenshot it, you can go ahead and do that. Or if you have your phone, take a picture of it. That way you just have it when people start asking where they should go with their different questions. Alrighty, and then Sarah Beth, were there any other questions that have come through?
I think most of them were answered when you went over bill pay. We did have one more about how long you can wait to respond to the void check. I believe those automatically are voided after 90 days. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so when we send you guys that message asking about the void check, we've already put the money back in your bill pay fund. So whether you answer or not, your chapter's got the money. The only thing it's asking is if you want us to resend that check. So the sooner the better, because I think it'll clear up a notification for you, but it's not holding up anything on our end, like giving you guys your money back. It's just basically a notification saying, hey, if you need to repay this vendor, go ahead and do it. Or you can just say you don't want to resend the check, and then that'll be that.
I think that's everything from the questions that we had, Hannah.
Okay, perfect. Well, if anything else comes up, y'all can just reach out using any of this information. But we appreciate you guys joining us this afternoon, and we're excited to hear from you guys, and hope you guys have a great semester.